All right, everyone, welcome to the latest installment of the trustee training. Today we are going to be discussing library ethics. All of these trainings are being recorded and they are being made available in a number of places. They are on the State Library YouTube channel. They are in the State Library Niche Academy, and I am also placing the recordings in the Library Trustee LibGuide. So the LibGuides are accessible from the State Library homepage. There's a link above the search bar. There's also a button further down the page. There is a subject for library boards, and the title of the guide is Public Library Board of Trustees. Who am I? My name is Monica Struck. I am the Public Library Specialist for the State Library. And even though we shouldn't delve too much into library law in this one, please know that I am not a lawyer. I have not studied the law in any capacity, and so this is not legal advice. Please consult your counsel with relevant questions. So today, we're going to start off by talking about some of the foundations of librarianship, and then we're going to touch on some hot topics, some buttons that get pushed on occasion. And I am very excited about this one, just because so many times between the boards and the librarians, I think there can be a little bit of a disconnect from where we're coming from. And so giving me the opportunity to tell you where the librarians are coming from, I think will help with communication. Okay. So foundations of librarianship, there are two main documents that libraries are kind of operating off of. First, we have the Library Code of Ethics. This was adopted in 1939 by the Association of, ALA, American Library Association, goodness me. And there are 8 articles covering access, respect, intellectual freedom, privacy, confidentiality, copyright, advocacy, continuing education, separating personal beliefs from professional duties, and things like that. It has been updated several times since 1939. As you know, things have changed in the library landscape. The most recent update was in 2021. And then we have the Library Bill of Rights. So this was also adopted in 1939. So both of these have been around for a really, really, really long time. And it is 7 statements and just kind of, says more specifically what a person, any person walking off the street should be able to expect from their library. This is also regularly updated, as things happen in the library world. The most recent update was in 2019, and that one brought in the 7th statement. So there used to be 6. The 2019 update brought it up to 7. We're going to go more specifically into the Library Bill of Rights. I have split these into kind of like categories, things that are covering similar things I have on the same slide. And it's kind of text heavy. There will be, time to talk about these at the end, but let's dive in. So the first article in the Library Bill of Rights, books and other library resources should be provided for the interest, information, and enlightenment of all people in the community. and materials shouldn't be excluded because of origin, age, background of those contributing to their creation. So this one is dealing particularly with the authors of the material. So, if, a death row inmate wrote a riveting thriller, you could, you would, if you chose to exclude it from the collection, it couldn't be because it was written by a death row inmate. You might exclude it because it's not meeting your collection development policy in another way, not because of who wrote it. And libraries should provide material. The second article, libraries should provide materials and information presenting all points of view on current and historical issues. Materials should not be prescribed or removed because of partisan or doctrinal disapproval. And so this one, basically saying that, even if a side of the issue is not popular or, isn't in keeping with the politics of the area where you reside, that is not a reason to exclude it from the collection. Okay, these next two are dealing with censorship. Number 3, libraries should challenge censorship in the fulfillment of their responsibility to provide information and enlightenment. So this is dealing with, the library trying to protect intellectual freedom. And number 4, libraries should cooperate with all persons and groups concerned with resisting the abridgment of free expression and free access to ideas. So libraries are, working as a team with people who are, trying to, help with intellectual freedom. These next 3 are all dealing with library spaces and people who use the library. Number 5, a person's right to use a library should not be denied or abridged because of origin, age, background, or views. So, this is where you get into things with like children's library cards, but the child being able to check out anything in the library, or, just because so-and-so down the street, wears a tinfoil hat and, runs around, saying the aliens are coming, that doesn't mean they can't use the library. Libraries which make, number 6, libraries which make exhibit spaces and meeting rooms available to the public, they should make the facilities available on an equitable basis, regardless of beliefs or affiliations of the individuals or groups requesting their use. So this means if you have public space available, for people to use either freely or to rent, if it's available to the public, it's available to everybody. So you might have a Bible study there 1 hour and a, oh goodness, an NRA meeting, the next hour. If it's available, everyone needs to be able to use it. And I would highly encourage anyone who has public meeting spaces to make sure you have a policy attached to it to, protect the equitable access of that room. And number 7, all people, regardless of origin, age, background, possess the right to privacy and confidentiality in their library use, and libraries should advocate for this. And number 7 is actually addressed in our state law. I believe it's 403812, but don't quote me on that, where it states that any record connecting a library patron with what they have borrowed or searched for is only needs to be released pursuant to a subpoena or court order. So in short, those were a lot of information crammed into, not too many slides. But libraries are for everyone. Library collections should represent multiple points of view. Materials shouldn't be excluded or removed because of personal beliefs. Libraries should challenge censorship. The library should be a neutral, or I should say non-political space, and patron privacy is important. So now we're gonna, whoops, it auto-played. We're going to delve into some of the hot topics. And I think we have time to watch this short video. It explains intellectual freedom a lot better than I could ever hope to. So we will watch this quick video.
The term intellectual freedom sounds like a complicated foreign concept, and it can be. But at its core, intellectual freedom is something that affects everyone every day. Intellectual freedom can also be complicated, but that's what this video is for. This video will cover the basics, what intellectual freedom is, and why it is important. So let's get started. What is intellectual freedom anyway? The American Library Association's Intellectual Freedom Manual describes it as the right of every individual to both seek and receive information from all points of view without restriction. Complex, right? Well, in more casual terms, that means that when you go to the library and ask for information about a topic, they shouldn't provide biased information. For example, if you went to your local library to ask for information about legalizing marijuana and only received information about why it shouldn't be legal, you would probably feel like you were missing half the story, right? Intellectual freedom is the ethical principle that everyone should receive good information that covers the different points of view. This then lets each person make an educated decision for themselves. In our marijuana example, it would be difficult to make informed opinions and choices if you were only presented with one side. It's intellectual freedom that is the reason that everyone should be provided with all the sides of the information they request and need. Not complicated, right? Now, you may be wondering, why is intellectual freedom important? Why should you care? This one should be a little easier now that we understand the basic premise of intellectual freedom. It is vital to the democratic process. It would be hard to make an informed choice about political candidates, controversial issues, current events, and more if you're only receiving information about one side of the argument. Getting high-quality information that presents multiple viewpoints is necessary to making informed decisions. As the Intellectual Freedom Manual states, intellectual freedom empowers young people to make smart decisions and solve real-world problems. Intellectual freedom also includes library collections. Beyond just getting information that has multiple points of view when you ask questions, there should also be books and materials at the library for browsing and checking out that contain multiple viewpoints available to everyone. The need for intellectual freedom in libraries extends past the answers to specific questions and into fiction and nonfiction materials for all ages. It is important that when you go to browse for a fun reading fiction book, that the books are representative of different people, cultures, and experiences. We often use books as a way to experience things that are different. Think about how boring it would be if all the books on the shelf only were about one type of experience. A girl in the suburbs who likes basketball. Intellectual freedom creates collections with diversity. So you can find the basketball books, but also space aliens and people who don't even look or live like you. Intellectual freedom extends outside of the library into every part of your everyday life. Intellectual freedom protects not only your right to learn and hear about all sides of an issue, but also to voice your opinion on issues as well. Intellectual freedom helps each person to be able to make well informed decisions about social issues, political candidates, even which refrigerator to buy.
All right. So that is intellectual freedom in a nutshell. A lot of the issues that we'll be talking about as we're going on do tend to tie back to intellectual freedom. It can be kind of a tricky subject, even though it can be explained pretty simply. So the next hot topic, censorship. So it helps, I think, to identify how we are defining censorship. And ALA is looking at censorship to be any barrier placed on accessing an item. So even if an item is kept in the library collection but is moved to a different area of the library, or put behind the desk, that would be considered censorship in this context. ALA does track censorship, successful challenges in the United States for information. And we kind of celebrate it during Banned Books Week, which is in October every year. Right now, it's mostly books and graphic novels that are challenged, but there are, other areas as well where libraries are, facing censorship and intellectual freedom challenges. And, censorship is a hard one because libraries are also, kind of walking the fine line between censorship and selection, because there isn't a library in the world that has room for everything that has ever been published. And so that's why libraries really need a good collection development policy and a good reconsideration policy so that they can select items, through the lens of the collection development policy. And so they are collecting items that they, should be getting and aren't facing issues like self-censorship. And when I come up this one, feel free to groan. It's okay. Diversity, equity, inclusion is kind of a triggering topic because it has been taken to extremes in certain areas of our life. But I do want to touch on what it looks like in libraries, because libraries are the one place where diversity, equity, and inclusion actually apply. As far as diversity goes, again, the library is for everyone. And so, anyone off the street should be able to walk into the library and either learn about something that is different from their walk of life or find something that, kind of reinforces. And equity, anyone should be able to walk into the library and, be able to use services, especially, if they're in the legal service area of the library, they should be able to get a library card, use the computer the same as anyone else. And inclusion, everyone should be able to walk in the library and feel welcome, because again, the library is for everyone. And that's something that if you walk away with nothing else from this session, the library is for everyone. But again, you can make policies that kind of help this happen. The policies around who gets a library card, when you request a card online, do you have to come into the library? What kind of identification do you require to get a library card? Things like that. They're all things that you can look at, within policy. Internet filtering. This kind of ties back to the intellectual freedom and censorship question. ALA would say if you are filtering your internet, you are censoring. But there are programs like E-rate that require libraries to be SIPA compliant. Balancing the fighting censorship with the need to protect children online, from inadvertently stepping on things they shouldn't. It's an interesting path to cross. We have, I would say, most of our libraries in North Dakota are filtering, but we do have some who don't, because they feel it's in too much like censorship, and they don't feel comfortable doing it. I'm not saying either way is wrong. It's definitely things to think about, especially as you look at your internet access policy. And some libraries, again, don't have a choice. You're on the E-rate contract, you must be SIPA compliant. For those of you who don't know what SIPA is, it's the Children's Internet Protection Act, which basically requires filtering on computers. And it's important to note that you can be, have the SIPA compliant filters, but be able to turn it off for an adult user, because sometimes internet filters aren't perfect and someone's, researching breast cancer and their, search gets flagged, and, people sometimes need a person to, not a machine to tell them what they're searching for. Things to keep in mind as far as internet filtering. Patron privacy. It comes up in the Library Bill of Rights. All people possess a right to privacy and confidentiality in their library use. And I was right, it was 403812. That is the section of Century Code that addresses patron privacy. If you do not already have one, I highly recommend adopting a privacy policy for your library. And all it needs to do is mention the appropriate bit of Century Code, and it just covers you from a policy standpoint. If anyone is ever wondering why you're not surrendering library records at the drop of a hat, where the topic gets a little hot is should parents be told what their children are borrowing? And I will say that comes down to a policy decision again. There are, some groups would say absolutely not. The minor patron, has the right to privacy. Other, groups would say Yeah, but kids are irresponsible and their parents need to, know what book is missing so they can help find it. So I won't come down hard on either side. In a perfect world, the child would tell the parent, hey, I lost this book. Can you help me find it? But knowing children, it's a good idea to, articulate where you will fall in your patron card policy. Public spaces. So again, this comes up in the Library Bill of Rights. Every library and reading room shall be free for the use of inhabitants of the political subdivision where it is located. And every library and reading room shall be free for the use of inhabitants of the political subdivision where it's located. And that is in Century Code 403807. So, it's basically, word for word, almost the same. So it's, important that the people who are paying for the library be able to use it for free. So then the question comes up, what about the people outside of the legal service area? So many libraries have, for instance, a non-resident card policy. So, whether they charge fees for that card, it varies from library to library. Whether they have different privileges, sometimes non-resident cards can't borrow as many items. Sometimes they're limited in computer use, things like that. Again, that is very much a policy decision. But the residents of the legal service area of that library should be able to access the library for free. Okay, so we've covered, quite a lot. Anything you want to talk over more, the floor is now open to anyone with questions. I am going to forward the slide to the contact information. If you're ever not comfortable bringing up a concern or a thought in the group, you are welcome to, contact me directly. I will happily talk through anything. But just because I don't trust my computer to tell me if someone threw something into the chat, I'm going to stop sharing so that I can see you. I just wanted to let you know these slides will be posted on that LibGuide. The recordings probably will be available at some point next week, and they'll be posted to all of the locations mentioned at the beginning as soon as they are available. But I will, if there are no questions, I will let you go. I hope wherever you are that you're staying warm and safe are my hopes for you in this cold, cold weekend.